Hello everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy A55 and see how this particular phone holds up in the later part of 2024. Now, the big thing I can definitely tell you for the most part is that, in my personal opinion, it probably does make a lot of sense to go and still buy a phone like this, but there are probably other phones that I would recommend buying before this one. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, number one, when it comes down to the exterior of this particular phone, this phone still looks pretty good. I don't really have too many things to complain about here when it comes down to this device. And coming from earlier this year to now, it still is holding up quite well. On the front, you're getting a 6.6-inch Super AMOLED display. And this type of panel still looks pretty good. As I mentioned before, it's the hole punch display, fingerprint sensor in the display as well. And I do think this is by far a really, really nice thing going on for this type of device, right? It's super nice, it's super cool. And I do like having a phone like this 120 Hz display as well. It only gets like 1000 nits of brightness, which is really not that good. But for kind of like a mid-tier kind of budget phone, it's kind of a decent display. USB Type-C port on the bottom. Micro SD card slot on the side of this phone as well, which is another really big advantage. There's not a lot of phones out in the market that have both USB-C and micro SD card slot, and it's even more rare that a phone like this is still supported with software. So I think that's a really, really cool advantage for this type of phone. On the back side, you're getting a standard type of glass back. So this phone actually still has a lot of capability for it being somewhat of like a budget phone for the most part. Getting a triple camera setup. Now, there are some areas where this phone on the outside doesn't hold up that well. Number one, there's no frosted glass back. It's kind of like a premium feature. This phone is lacking it. There's no wireless charging on this phone, so that is not a good feature on this thing. And there's no reverse wireless charging on this phone either. So those things right there could be kind of a disadvantage for a lot of people, but I do think it's still like a decent looking phone when it comes down to it. The camera side, you're able to do 4K at 30 on the front and the back. I would have loved to have seen 4K at 60. I think that would have been a really cool feature. Unfortunately, we did not get that on this type of phone. I think maybe the next generation will end up getting it, but we do still maintain that wide, ultra-wide, and macro lens. So this is still a pretty good looking lens and camera when it comes down to this particular phone, but definitely when it comes down to some other devices, those ones probably hold up better, like a Samsung Galaxy S24 and S23 and so on and so forth. Software longevity, this is a big advantage for this phone because we're still getting up to 4 major versions of Android. We just got One UI 7, betas. So this phone is going to be getting that. So it's probably going to be lasting until like 2026 or 2027. So we still have a couple of more years of this phone still being supported with software, which is a very cool thing to have. And I personally love being able to buy a phone and have it still supported with software. And this is another really big advantage for this type of device when it comes down to it as well. So finally, when the performance thing comes down to it, this phone is still giving you that, it's not the most expensive chipset of all time. It's that Exynos, 1480 chipset with 6 or 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. And the performance of this phone really wasn't that terrible, right? If you're buying a phone like this, it's really not going to be that bad. And I do think that is kind of a nice advantage going on for this phone. Like you can go through, buy a phone like this, and it really isn't going to be like this super expensive device. It's going to be like a mid-tier price, but you're going to be getting what you pay for, really, right? Like this is going to be a phone that is not going to be that great of a performing device, and that's kind of what ends up happening here. Otherwise, though, I think with something like, this type of device, it's still very much, a decent device to buy. I think it still has a lot of capability. And I think if you want to buy it, I would, by all means recommend you to go and get it. But I do think, like I said, there might be some other phones I'd recommend buying. Things like the Galaxy S23, I think is probably a better phone than this thing. An S22 Plus or S22 Ultra, I think would be really nice. But this phone is still supported with software, so I'd probably recommend still buying this one too. So in terms of that, that's kind of what I recommend there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.